What's up guys, hi and welcome to Christchurch in New Zealand. So we're going to do a little paranormal tonight around this area because we learned today that in 2010 and in 2011 they suffered two major earthquakes, one after the other, about 8 months apart, and the 1,200 buildings came down during that earthquake and 185 lives were lost.
And most of this area was destroyed.
Yeah, the area where we're stood right now, all the buildings were flattened, and they started to build new, like public libraries. Different buildings are going up. Lots of buildings are still cordoned off until they're signed off as dangerous, not unable to be repaired. After all this time, even now, the city is rebuilding. So we're going to go over to the cathedral because they're renovating that as best they can, but they've run out of money and they need $100 million to be able to complete it. And this is where really the Vatican needs to step in and step up and give those people that money for that cathedral, the $100 million, which is going to be 50 million in English, to get it finished, because it's irrelevant whether it's Catholic or whether it's Anglican. At the end of the day, it's a cathedral and it needs completing, and they don't have the money to do it here, so it needs, a church with a big bank to step up and put up the money. Yeah, so you've already heard us ranting and raving once in Rome about the Vatican and how much money they have and all of that. Well, when you see this, and you talk to the people here that have survived these two earthquakes and are still living in this city and have watched it being rebuilt around their heads, and they're all doing different things now because my life was good. So we think we might be able to communicate with some people who lost their lives in this earthquake, but obviously we're going to treat this with sensitivity and the respect that it deserves. We're not chasing phantoms here, we're inviting people to come through with their tale if they wish to speak to us. I'm going to go over to the cathedral now and show you that.
Yeah.
They are still working on it. They are trying to get it back to what it was before. All this area now, there's a lot of flattened parks, car parks, paved. What was that?
Here we go. Me again.
Go on.
Do you like Satan?
Well, they're probably just inquiring.
Yes.
So just hang fire while
Yeah.
So a lot of people are still suffering from the aftermath, obviously, of this post-traumatic event that happened right here. And you talk to a lot of people that were in it, and they, relate their stories, and they still get obviously very upset, very emotional about it. Something that's going to stay with them for their entire lives. So these paved areas were all where buildings once stood. This is the cathedral that's now they're trying to renovate it as best they can.
Churches, all the other churches that were destroyed during the earthquake. What's that?
So the earthquake happened, the first one was June 2010 and the second one was February 2011. They were back to back and they measured.
I'm taking my time.
Alright, yeah, you know why? Because they're absolutely stressed with what happened, and that's why it's going to take a while even for spirit people to be able to talk about it. So let's sit round here where it's well lit, and we'll wait, and we'll invite anyone through who wants to tell us what happened on that. The first earthquake, I believe, was 4 o'clock in the morning. You can sit there and we'll just do we'll just take it gentle and easy, because these people have been through devastating natural attack, and they've got to remember, Andy,
Godfrey.
some of them might still be not realise they've passed over.
No, I think that's...
Godfrey, were you here, Godfrey? Were you involved in this earthquake? Was your life taken? Please come forward and speak to us if you feel able to. Life was good.
You were special.
Life probably was very good in this beautiful city.
You were special. In what way? What do you mean by I'm special? What do you mean by that? got a message for somebody?
My life was good. Probably their lives were really good. And then it just struck all of a sudden on a June afternoon, didn't it? And people were fleeing for their lives, and the buildings, the rubble was falling down. The earth was quaking, and the buildings were
Have you got
tremoring.
any message that you want to give?
The roads were cracking.
Or anywhere you want us to go
No
to?
leave us.
No, leave us.
What did it say? No leave us.
No.
Leave us.
Leave us.
So you are okay where you are now in the spirit world? You've accepted what happened?
Or do you just don't want to talk about it? Is that what you mean? Is it too,
Perhaps they don't want to talk about
is
it.
too upsetting, too traumatic?
Yeah, perhaps that's it. I think these sudden catastrophes where you lose a lot of lives,
Is that what you mean?
you can get that, I
You
think.
don't want to talk about it, just say you don't want to talk about it. I get you. It's very, very traumatic.
Should walk across the square a little bit round. So I understand totally if these people don't want to come forward and communicate about it, because this isn't the first time we've come across a disaster zone on our travels, is it, Andy? Because when we went to Sri Lanka in 2012, the year we got married, we went down to Gal from Colombo by road, and all of the coast just has shrines and graves with photographs and gifts of all the people that got washed out to sea during the tsunami. And the guy who drove us was shaking terribly, and he said it still affects me now. He said the day, because it was Boxing Day, and they were sitting down to dinner after Christmas, because they do celebrate it in Sri Lanka. There's a lot of Christians there.
We're not safe.
So they will feel unsafe, won't they, because of what happened?
What do you mean? Do you mean we're not safe from something that happened to you? Is that what you mean? Is that what you're trying to say?
It's because, see, there's some earthquake stuff here. So just show you this, guys. This is everywhere, this history now. Earthquakes have been recorded throughout Christchurch history. The most recent series began on 4th of September 2010 and included the magnitude that shocked the city on the 22nd of February 2011. This was the most destructive earthquake to strike a New Zealand city in 80 years. So there's still, that's the church after the earthquake, the cathedral actually. All the spires and the roof got lifted off. And so they're desperately trying to get this. They've done a majority of it. They've done the structural work, but now they've got to make it safe, as in any more earthquakes in the future will pull it down again. And they're 100 million New Zealand dollars short, which is 50 million English pounds. It's probably 100 million US dollars as well. And it's like, why aren't the churches of the world getting together and making this money and handing it over? Because the people here are not asking for money. They're not asking for charity. You know? And I think it's just a Christian thing to do, that all the churches in the world ought to donate a little something, and then we can make that money up to what they need and get this fixed once and for all. Look, talk to the camera, Andy.
Anywhere you want us to go to, any messages or anything like that. I know it's a traumatic time, I know it's probably hard to talk to people, we never had a chance to talk to, but have you got any kind of messages or anything like that, anything you want to say about?
Let's sit and talk.
Let's sit and talk. So perhaps they do want to talk now. Perhaps some people want to.
Yeah,
Perhaps some people want to. All right, so let's do that then. Let's do what they're asking.
Probably will.
Yeah.
No, because we've not had a chance to.
No.
It's a traumatic time of pulse.
Okay. So try and tell us what happened
Is that
here.
what it felt like?
Yeah, an
What
earth
was
tremor.
happening in the pulse? Is that what you meaning to say?
Don't forget, they were ordinary people like you and me, just going out to work for the day, and then this earthquake struck, and it changed their lives for good. It even took some lives.
How do you feel now about what happened? as though you can't move on because it was such a sudden, horrific thing that happened. Is that how you feel? That you're still not sure what happened that day? Or you don't know what happened that day, you just know that you're not with us anymore. Did you live in the city or did you live outside when you were coming here for work? Have you any oneness?
That means like on their own, doesn't it? Alone, a loner.
Oneness. Do you feel a oneness with the city? And
Or at
that's
one,
why,
yeah.
That's why you don't want to leave.
Maybe they feel at one because they all died at the same time.
Maybe you're going back over that day and thinking through that if you'd have done it, you'd have started that day or gone through things in that day a different way, you would have still been here, and you're struggling to get that out of your head. All I can say is you don't need to stay here. You know, you don't need to be stuck in this place. You can move to a better place, whatever that place may be.
I affect the animals.
They affect the animals.
Or maybe it's someone who had pets and then they, perhaps the pets could see them once they passed away. Cats and dogs, they see spirits, don't they?
Yeah.
Perhaps when this person died, maybe the animals could still see them.
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe that's the connection with that.
Who are we talking to? Can you tell us your name? Can you tell us what time you're from? What year you passed? Just think about it. This wasn't the 2010 and 2011 weren't the first times. It's been for a few hundred years they've had earthquakes here.
I think they had in the Earthquake Museum today. They had 1987 and 1994, but not as big as this.
So are you from one of the previous earthquakes that they've had over the years?
I think the others didn't kill anybody. This is the first time they've had lives lost.
Yeah. Or were you affected by it? Were you on that day, even though you'd already passed, were you trying to protect people who were injured or hurt? Help people get away from the danger?
It's on the same scale as the 9/11 attacks in New York, although it's a different thing, isn't it, altogether?
Effort.
But it's on the same scale. Sort of people involved and the emergency crews having to dig and find people under the rubble and clear it all away. It's on a similar scale to what happened there.
Yeah.
Although that was terrorist done and this was a natural thing.
This is something that
It makes you look at it in two different ways. I think when it's a terrorist, it makes you really angry that someone created that to happen to your city. Whereas this is like a natural occurrence, like a natural fault in the earth, and it's out of our control.
I think the only way you can do anything about this is get the warnings early enough to people to move. Then you can. That's the only way, because you can't. Don't think you can stop these things happening.
You can't stop earthquakes or volcanoes.
You can make the buildings safer.
Yeah.
So they don't.
Which is what they're doing right now.
You cannot stop it.
They've lowered the buildings now.
Yeah, you won't be able. They lower the buildings. They make the buildings more able to move rather than be a solid. It's like they do in Japan when they have the
The
earthquakes.
children sing.
Children sing.
Well, there were two children singing in that video, weren't there, about the
Yeah.
earthquake?
Yeah, it is in Japan and in San Francisco as well, and I think in LA as well, where there is a big chance of earthquake. They actually built the buildings now, so the buildings move
Yeah.
with it, so there isn't that chance of the buildings. They're built on, and I can't think they did show you, but they're built so the buildings move. The buildings are a solid thing. The buildings will move. Yeah, you'll feel a lot of movement in the buildings, but the buildings will not collapse because how the building
Yeah.
the structure of the structural design of the building is that it'll move with any kind of tremor. So there isn't that. You're always going to get Ernest.
Yeah, that's someone's name.
You're always going to get that where certain things you cannot do anything.
No,
certain
not
bits
natural
you cannot
things.
do anything about. You know, the roads cracking or things like that.
Should we have a
You
walk
cannot-
around and follow the tram line down to the river then?
Yeah. So,
Show a little bit more of the area. So all of this region where it's flattened down now has been where buildings once stood that came down in the aftermath of during and the aftermath of the earthquake. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know anything about this Christchurch earthquake until we got here last night and did the day tour today, and then they told us all about it. So we went to the Quake Museum to find out more. And it's the whole city talks about it, and like there's posters and pictures everywhere showing you the aftermath, and it's like, I get it. They're traumatized by it. One day has changed the city, it's changed the layout of the city, it's changed their lives. A lot of people went on to do different things, a lot of people moved away from Christchurch. It just has a massive effect on people. People do things that they wouldn't have done before. They'll move to a different place and do something completely different because they want to get away from it. Amelia, so you're getting some names through.
yeah.
That's the cathedral again back there. So that what they've put there is it's a cardboard covering of the window. They're going to replace the real window eventually, but right now they've covered it up until they can.
Basically, had to stop.
Yeah, they've had to stop.
Restoration
And it's the board advertising for donations. They're asking, if anyone want to hear the bells ringing again, donate today. Visit the QR code. So
yeah, it's just
a lot of work needs to be done yet on that cathedral.
Yeah.
Are there any spirit people here, please, who were connected with this earthquake? Were you in and around the cathedral when it happened? I mean, you can't go in there yet, but I'm pretty sure that when you can, they're going to put an alcove just for laying flowers and, where you can write notes and light candles for the
Yeah,
people, the
but-
victims and all that.
But when is it going to be finished? I mean,
Well, they can't.
will it be finished?
They can't do any more now until they've got that money.
Getting a lot of names
They need $100 million and then they can move on
there. You know, it's
to the next bit.
will it ever be finished?
Well, that's what that guy, the tram guy, said that today. He said, will it always remain like this? I know New Zealand government are trying to source some funding at the minute.
I don't know. My opinion, if the money isn't forthcoming, I would
Ghost.
I would.
Who's the ghost?
I would
Who is the ghost, please? What's your name?
make it safe inside and outside, and keep it as it is.
They're probably going to have to do that because if they don't get the money, they're not going to be able to go any
keep
further
it as
with
it is, but as a monument.
Let's see
I miss my life.
right, there's a ghost here, man, communicating with us
life.
now. Let's find out who it is. Who are you, please? What's your name?
Who you misses your life?
Well, life was cut short, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Belittling.
belittling.
What's belittling? You think we're
No,
belittling
you
you?
don't think we are, because that's no intention.
We have
of that.
total respect for you.
Total respect,
Complete
and we
total
want
respect
to
for what you've gone through.
Find out who you are.
You go out to work that day and then disaster strikes and your life is just finished. No one expects that to happen,
Were you
nobody.
connected with the church? Were you connected with the church? The cathedral? You know, do you feel certain people are belittling you by not putting forward the means to rebuild your church?
It's important. It's the cathedral for Christchurch, isn't it?
No.
It needs to be fixed.
I think this is...
And I do think there needs to
the
be...
more it's left like this, it's more of a monument and people don't forget what happened.
Yeah, it is.
Strong.
We were strong.
Yeah.
I'd like to think so. I think you, for what you've come through, are a lot stronger.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
Definitely.
This has got to be what happened, some kind of giving new life to a lot of people. A lot of people changed their lives, a lot of people changed the way their minds worked and how they thought. And hopefully for a better things. You know,
Yeah.
people change when they're in
It all depends on it.
traumatic situations.
Post-traumatic stress affects different people in different ways, and sometimes people think they're through it and over it, and something can happen to trigger it all off.
Do you
And
feel as though you've been remembered, or do you feel as though sometimes you've forgotten? You know, whichever.
I'm just going to film that because the trees are lighting up there. Look. See, the people haven't forgotten how to party and skateboard. They're still doing that, which is good. I think some of these people were younger and they probably were kids when the earthquake happened.
Yeah, I mean, if you, no, I mean, what, 20, so it's like 13
It's been 12 years, 13 years.
ago, so probably
Anybody who's 20 would have been in school.
anybody
Hazel.
Hazel,
I think
anybody
we're getting some names too of people that are
Anybody
in it
in
now.
the
Should we go that way and pick up that tram line?
in the 20s would still remember. So the majority of people who've sort of who you see around are going to be remember it. You know,
Yeah.
they're going to remember it. Yeah. You know, I don't think you're going to. Anybody who lives.
I'll walk in the square and go back towards the cathedral. Actually, I think we'll stick with this area for the earthquake because it's all this region, isn't it?
I mean,
Would you like to come forward on the camera and let us hear your name, hear you speak,
yeah. I mean,
hear your footsteps running?
I do think because if this was sort of this is the main sort of centre of the city, and it really,
Yeah.
I would think so. So yeah, I mean, this is the old. It's a post office building.
Yeah.
Post building.
Which is still closed and boarded up right now. It's a beautiful building, but it's
But then again, it's probably a lot of these places that are empty now, probably not safe.
a lot of these
They
places.
probably need a lot of work on it.
Yeah, a lot of these places have been deemed unsafe, so they still haven't decided what to do with a lot of these buildings yet.
Yeah.
And there's so many beautiful buildings like this all over the city that are standing empty, just waiting for the council to make the decision on it.
We're getting quite a few names coming through now.
All right.
And I think that's a sign that they're trusting what we're doing.
So it's like they're coming around.
Hopefully we're doing it in. I want to do it in a respectful way.
Well, you have to. You can't goof about on a video like
I don't want
this.
to be doing it in any disrespectful way.
No.
Total respect. It's just.
I know we goof about on a lot of the videos, but on
They
certain ones
probably-
we won't. We can't. We wouldn't even
We've
dream of
heard
doing that.
stories from people who were involved, who their stories from that day, but the one stories that we can't and nobody has heard of the victims on that day, the people who lost their lives that day. You know, tragically they were just going about the normal way of life, normal day to day, and they didn't go home. People can tell you about that person. People can tell you about the families, can tell you all about them and how they feel, but we don't know how the people who died on that day felt.
A lot of people lost their homes because the crack went straight down through their housing estate, and all those houses were deemed unsafe, and they all had to move. Didn't they? Given a certain length of time to move out.
You know, people were just
retired couples and
going out and
newlyweds and all kinds of people, weren't it?
Yeah, it's just...
It affected lots of people in lots of different ways.
Yeah.
And even today, I mean, obviously it's such a massive thing.
You miss your family.
Really?
Have you any kind of message for your family? What would you like to say to your family? What would you like to say to everybody? You know, no matter what it is, just tell us how you're feeling. How you feeling now? Are you angry? Are you sad? Have you come to terms with what happened? No. It's your chance for you to say what you were thinking, what you were feeling, what your story is. You know, we're here to listen. We're here to listen. This is about you. You know, you can ask us questions if you feel. You can ask us questions.
There's still some pictures here of what it was like before the earthquake. These are the buildings that disappeared during.
Yeah.
These are some of the buildings that got come right down and not here now. So they've got the black and white pictures up for people to remember the buildings that were here one time.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you have an association with any of these buildings that have now gone? Perhaps you worked in one of those buildings? It's all pictures from the past, isn't it? When they, before it all happened.
Yeah,
and some of them buildings that are still standing, like the one behind you, is boarded up right now because they can't.
There's still a lot of sadness in this city.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's going to overhang like a cloud. I mean, they talk about it cheerfully as best they can, and there is some humorous stories in it.
Rosemary.
But then you see the faces sadden over. Do you know the guy in the museum today? He was all cheerful and telling you everything, and then I noticed when we walked away, he looked really sad. I thought, it's still affecting you. You know, it will, obviously, of course, it's it's p.t.s.d. in it, and people have it and don't realise that they have it.
You were strong again. You see...
Got to be strong to get through it, it's the only way.
You've got that museum, but you don't know, maybe he lost somebody in that, maybe he was in here, in the centre of the city when it happened, so maybe that was, it felt as though to keep the memory of people who he'd lost alive.
The tram just going by there.
Maybe that's why.
Let's zoom in on the tram. So we still have the oldie worldy trams going around as well, guys. We went on that today. Well, the thing is, for the people that remain, it's the aftermath and the p.t.s.d. that comes with it. It just never goes away. You think it's gone, and then it isn't really. It's something re-emerges back to the surface, and it starts it off all over again. And it's a horrible thing to have.
Yeah, I just think maybe that's why some people started that museum.
I think so.
Much,
their way of coping with it.
To keep the memory alive, but their way.
Some people
coping with
will have had to find a lot of ways to get on with their lives in this city in the aftermath of what happened.
Yeah.
And whatever that takes, whether it's writing a book, whether it's moving away and doing something entirely different, whether it's opening a memory thing like they've done. Everybody finds their own way through it, and that's what happens. Let's go and film these panels over here, they're nice and colourful. So on the subject of post-traumatic stress and aftermath and all of that stuff, I was actually in the Manchester IRA bombing in 1996, and I can relate, obviously on a very small scale, to what these people have gone through, because it's a really unreal feeling when you go out to work that day and something happens and your entire day changes. Buildings are falling around your head and all there is rubble and dust and police flying about everywhere, and it's just a surreal experience. So I can relate to what the people have gone through in a small way. But the PTSD itself can last years and years and years, and you think you're okay with it, and then something happens and all of a sudden it all comes back. And I do understand a little of what some of the soldiers who come back from war zones feel.
Yeah.
So these are some of the peace panels and things that they've put up, to make the city beautiful again, where the areas have been flattened down. I mean, one thing I'd like to know, the people that have passed over, do they still see the city as it was, or do they see it as it is now?
Yeah. You still see things as it was, and then you look and the things that used to be here aren't here anymore. The places and the things that you used to love, are they still here? And then when you see it again, they're not here. The places that you loved.
I sometimes wonder when people have passed over, do they see the places how they were when they were here, or can they see it like it is now? It's changed.
Yeah,
It's one of the questions wherever we go doing paranormal, I always think about that.
That's the point. People might witness things in certain places because they're expecting those things to still be there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But going back to PTSD, nobody really understands what that's like unless you've had it yourself for whatever reason. The only other people who know is the people that's gone through it themselves for whatever reason. And obviously, a lot of people have been through much worse, and some people have been through milder things. But the effects of it are still the same.
How do you feel about us talking about this? Are you okay with it? Are you okay with us talking about traumatic experience? Taunt.
You might have been a teacher.
Yeah. Taunt.
Alright, that doesn't really mean. Let's just have a walk over to where it's a bit more lighting. No, definitely not. We're just out of respect, and trying to be sensitive about this subject because it's horrendous. It's a freak disaster, and it's a wrong place, wrong time thing. Yeah. And nobody wants to get caught up in any of that.
No.
But unfortunately, we cannot change what happens with the natural earth. Reginald. Well, these might be some names of people that are actually here. I mean, all these flat bits here, like where those rocks are, there were buildings there.
Yeah.
They all come down in the earthquake, so we're right in the region, the epicenter of it, if you like, really here. I know there was 1,200 buildings throughout the city that came down through the earthquake, and all these glass ones behind you have been rebuilt since. All of this is brand new.
Right.
All of this has been built since then.
When you look at that map, and you look at the map of what was here, and then you look at a map of things now, and it's like totally different.
It is.
Big, vast areas where they're just car parks now that used to be old buildings.
But they are trying to make them into nice gardens and squares like this. That's why there's so many squares in this city.
But I mean, obviously, there isn't.
It is nice how they've done it so far. It really is. It's a credit to them. But obviously it's taken time because they've had to take the buildings down piece by piece, and then they've had to clear up all the rubble. There's been a hell of a lot of work gone on here. And if you go in the Quake Museum, you see all the photographs of like all the emergency services and all the builders and construction people and demolition people and all that are taking the city apart brick by brick, keeping it safe for the people to continue with their daily lives. It's a really emotional place to go. It's like you really feel it when you come out of there and see the footage.
rebuild the place, but
Yeah, they
Vicky-
will. It's gonna. I think doing it gradually is better than just doing it like all in one go.
yeah, I mean,
Because you're seeing it come back together as a new city.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think the whole of this country is susceptible to earthquakes, earth tremors.
Yeah, it's
'cause
where it is.
Where it is, and yeah, you can try and make it safe, but you're not gonna eradicate the problem.
I'll walk back over there again, but it's a bit quieter.
Not yet, anyway.
And it's a really unusual thing when you've seen your city one way and then you see it afterwards another way, because after the Manchester bomb, I worked to live there, so I was in and out of the city every single day, and after that that was rubble and cordoned off for a long time, until they rebuilt those parts that they wanted to rebuild. And it's people like that, I think, is that post-traumatic stress. When you get an older drunk person pushing a trolley along who's lost the plot, you think, is this the aftermath?
I mean, you don't.
This is what p.t.s.d. does to people. This is what it does.
Yeah.
I think he's probably a victim of what happened.
Oh yeah.
Seriously, I do. Yeah, you hear that, guys? That's a classic person who's been mentally affected by some serious, shocking consequence. And I do feel for people like that. It's not your average flipping homeless drunk. It's someone who's just not been able to cope with the aftermath of it all. You sit there. It's got the lighting's good here, and we'll be out of the way. Yeah, I do think that's a classic case of someone who's been affected. I do, Andy. I seriously do.
Yeah, but
Inspire.
there are probably a lot of people who lost hope. You think there's probably a lot of people who've lost their homes.
Yeah, a lot of people did.
And lost their homes, buildings come down, they've lost.
You're surrounded by love.
Thank you.
Thank you. People have lost their homes, they've lost their jobs, they've lost stuff, everything.
Yeah, it's
and
horrendous.
as much as the help was there, probably drove people over the edge.
Yeah, because you
And
go
there
out that
probably are
day.
a lot of people who,
You go out that day to do your normal day. You're going into the city to go to work. You're doing your normal day, and then something blows it all out of the thing, and you're like, what the hell? And you carry on doing the normal thing.
Yeah.
I told you when that bomb went off in Manchester, I was getting my dad a Father's Day card. And even though that had gone off and the whole city was cordoned off and there was ambulances, police, there was injured people lying on the floor and everyone was crying and screaming and running and no one really knew what was going on. Just kept hearing the word bomb. It's like, I was still thinking, but I've got to get my dad's Father's Day card. Which shop can I go to now? And you just doesn't, you can't take it in.
No.
You cannot take it in.
You don't. You don't, because you try and...
You carry on like normal.
I'm walking around you.
Oh.
Come and join us and tell us your story.
Yeah,
Come and share what's happened to you, your feelings and thoughts on it.
Because it's such a traumatic experience, and you try and normalise it, and
you do, but it's like a movie replaying.
You find a lot of people try and just carry on.
Yeah, because you want some normality.
As everything's right, because if you carry on as though everything's just as it was, then you block that out.
It's your only way of coping, really, keep your life normal.
Which is a way of coping, but in the long run, at some point along the line, it's going to come on you. And but people...
Well, that's why I started drinking.
People deal with it.
And I think people already know that me and Andy met 18 years ago in rehab now. Well, the reason I started drinking, really out of control, was because of post-traumatic stress. And I didn't know what it was back then. It was 1996 and I was working in a hotel, and I just remember doctors and nurses saying, do you want bomb counselling? And I'm thinking, well, what is it? And will it work? And I'm like, no, I'm alright, I've got my job, I can carry on. And you carry on going back to work, you carry on doing your thing. And it's like 10 years later, 20 years later, when it really, really, really kicks in and affects you. And this guy, I totally get it, I understand it if he's been affected by it all.
Like you said a demon here, is that what you felt it was?
Yeah, maybe.
you know,
Because a lot of churches got destroyed.
If this is somebody who remembers one of the earthquakes from the 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s, they might have felt, because the thing is, like the guy was saying today, nearly all the churches in this area, in this city, were destroyed.
But the casino still stood.
The cathedral was damaged, but it's still there. But other churches were just destroyed.
Thought.
So some people, very religious people, would take it that, and a lot of people still to this day think these things that happen are the wrath of God.
Yeah, they do.
And people will still believe that.
The Maoris probably would have thought that if it had happened at an earlier age.
They might have thought it. They probably, obviously, when this island wasn't inhabited by European immigrants. Yeah. And before this country was colonised by Europeans coming here and working here and living here, I would imagine in the Maori culture, same as a lot of cultures when things like that happen, they would have taken that it would have been the gods were displeased with them.
Yeah.
So these quakes, obviously. Medal. Did you get a medal for bravery?
Because there have been previous earthquakes to this one, haven't there, in the 18 and 1900s?
Yeah. So that's how people look at it, that
But this is the most devastating one to
the
date.
gods were displeased with them. You know. Medal. Did you get a medal for trying to help people for what you did?
Sorrow.
Sorrow.
Yeah, it sounds like it, doesn't it?
There would be a lot of sorrow, because obviously if you were, as much as you tried to help people, there obviously were times that you couldn't do anything. You know, you put yourself in, as much as you tried to help, you couldn't do anything, and that must have been horrendous if you've been trying.
Lucifer.
Yeah, Lucifer. He's a good.
Perhaps they're thinking that that it was the work of,
Work
dark
of the
forces.
And
Because it's such a beautiful city with lovely people, and think, why, why has it happened to us?
But this is more
Rituals here.
rituals here.
Well, you never know, do you? Maybe, unless they're talking about Maori. I mean, perhaps in the past the Maori tribes may have practiced stuff in that.
Yeah.
Going way back,
Yeah,
before this was all built
I
on.
can't imagine.
Maybe even some people might have blamed it on cursed land.
See, I don't know. I mean, obviously, you know the history of this city going back a couple of equipment. We've got plenty. We haven't got a lot of equipment.
Not
with us,
got it all because of the weight.
Yeah, but going back over the. You would only know the history of them too, and you don't know the history before.
It was all Maori land before the emigrants came.
Yeah, there would have been.
So we don't know what happened.
There would have been.
Ritual-wise, we don't know.
Traditional native rituals.
I'm finding it difficult.
Okay.
Yeah,
just take your time.
I can understand that. But there would have been native rituals here. And it doesn't necessarily mean dark rituals or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, probably a lot of people who came here would, wrongly so, believe that the rituals that were being done by the tribal people here were.
Yeah, they would have.
Rush
Yeah.
off.
I'm not rushing anywhere. Yeah, they would have thought they were dark rituals. They would have thought that, because, they weren't Christian beliefs, were they?
No.
That some of the rituals probably then were.
No, they believed in the gods.
They believed,
the gods of the weather, the gods of the stars, the gods of the earth, earth, air, fire, water, gods, everything like that they believed in.
Yeah, so the rituals would have been by Christian missionaries coming over here and trying to convert them to Christianity.
That's why they ended up in the pot as cannibal soup
Would it,
a lot of the time.
Well,
Cream of with crusty bread on the side.
and quite rightly so. I'd have joined in with them.
Cream of Christian preacher soup.
That sounds good enough to me. Yeah, that sounds good to me. But yeah, I mean, the Christian missionaries going all around the world, they did it with the Native Americans, tried to, and that's why a lot of these places have lost the sort of sacred land, sacred areas, because so-called do-gooders have come over and said, well, you shouldn't be doing this, this is the wrong way, you are still savages and things like that.
Archfiend.
Archfiend.
Alright, we're going to have to wrap it up there because we're out of time. And so...
That's been